When we work with a translation, we'll be sliding a figure left, right, up, or down, and our rule could look something like this. Now, this is just one specific example of a rule. It's not a formula. The rule could be whatever we want it to be, but in this case, here's one specific example. Since your x value is your left or right motion, this first part of our rule, since it's adding 3, is going to tell us to move our figure, slide our figure, 3 units to the right. Positive is in the right direction. The second part of our rule, since the y tells you the vertical portion, the vertical movement, and that's y minus 1, that's going to tell us to move our figure 1 unit downwards. Okay, because it's a negative. So that's there's two ways we can go about figuring out where these figures end up once we translate or slide them. One way is to just use this verbal rule we just came up with. You can take each point and move it 3 units to the right and 1 unit down, and that'll be where your pre-image ends up. The pre-image being the first figure, the original figure. The image would be the new one that we make. We could also do this mathematically using this rule up here by adding 3 to our x-coordinate and subtracting 1 from our y. So let's try this using both ways, and you can figure out which way you like better. So let's start with point A. Now, I've gone ahead and graphed this already, so if you need to pause the video and graph it yourself, go ahead and do that. My coordinates are down here, and remember what I had just said too. This is the pre-image, where the figure starts out as. So point A is at -1, 2. Let's go ahead and just use our verbal description of the rule to figure out how we could translate this figure one way. So starting at point A, let's count 3 spaces to the right. So you're not going to be able to see me count with my pen, but go ahead and count from point A, starting from point A, count 3 spaces to the right, 1, 2, 3, and then count down 1. And so we end up right there. Oops. Right there. We call this new location, the figure is going to be called the image, the figure that's formed, but we'd call that point, we don't want to call it just A because we already have a point A. What we do though is we put a little apostrophe with it and call it A prime, so we know it's connected. If I take a look and figure out the coordinates of A prime, I can see those coordinates are at 2, 1. So let me go ahead and add that to my chart down here. So 2, 1 are the coordinates of A prime. So again, I found those coordinates simply by using the verbal rule, moving my figure 3 spaces to the right and 1 unit down. Let me show you how we could find that same coordinate using the rule they gave us up top. So the rule said to add 3 to the x value and take 1 away from the y value. So using the point, well, let's stick with A again. The point was -1, 2 for the pre-image. If I want to add 3 to the x value, well, -1 plus 3 ends up with 2. Hey, that's what we had when we just moved it. And the rule said subtract 1 from the y value. 2 minus 1 is 1. So I end up with the same coordinate no matter how I want to do this. Whether I simply want to count or whether I want to use that rule, I end up with the same coordinates. Now, if you are using this method, if you're using the mathematical rule, make sure you plot that point. Remember, we always plot points from the origin. So don't start from point A and move 2, 1. Start from the origin, like we graph any point, move 2 to the right and up 1. We end up with that point for A prime. Okay? So there's 2 different ways you can find your coordinates for your image, either moving each point 3 to the right and down 1, or using your mathematical rule up top to find your new coordinates. What I want you to do is pause the video, find your other 3 values, either add 3 to all the x's, take 1 away from the y's, or simply shift your points using that verbal rule. So go ahead and pause the video, try that, and then I'll let the video play through real quick, and then you can check your answer against mine and see if you ended up with the same image. So there are the coordinates I came up with. Hopefully your coordinates match mine. I also have the image graphed in green or in orange up there. And notice what I did. I labeled each point. Make sure each point gets labeled. And don't forget to include the primes with those. I am picky, and so if you just have ABC again, ABCD, it's not going to be okay. We want to make sure we have the apostrophes, the primes, to indicate that that's what our image looks like. Notice it's the same exact figure. It's the same size, the same shape. All I've done was I've slid it. I've translated it 3 to the right and 1 down.